Disney are causing trouble again. I should just make that the opening of all my Disney related videos. They recently announced a new animated show called Primos, and it has already attracted quite a lot of negative attention. This show centers around a young Mexican American girl whose 12 cousins move in with her for the summer. Now, the trouble revolves around a few things, from people saying that it's a poor representation of the Latino community, to the wrong use of the Spanish language. It's led to the creator of the show, Natasha Klein, releasing a response video addressing the backlash, where she apologised for it all. You'd think this would have stopped the controversy, but no, it only made things worse. It's important to note that Primos hasn't even aired its first episode yet. All the uproar has stemmed solely from the promotional materials. So what I figured we'd do is look at the problems people have with it, and hopefully try and figure out whether this show is worth watching once it's come out and this has all died down. Primos hasn't had an easy life. It was pitched to Disney 6 years ago in 2017. The vision for it was an animated series that would celebrate the experiences of a young Mexican American girl having a summer adventure with all her cousins. It wasn't greenlit until September 2020, which is an awful lot of waiting around, and the timing wasn't great because only a few months prior to that, a man in Wuhan, China fell a little ill, and, well, the whole world shut down for a while. So obviously they couldn't start for a bit. Production started eventually in February of 2021, presumably with the work from home team. Now, the struggles of workforces suddenly adapting to completely working from home had an effect on a lot of TV shows and stuff. The game The Quarry went into production around this time and as a consequence had to cut about 20% of its content. So I'm certain Primos had a bit of a rough time during it. But that was 2 years ago in fairness. Surely they could have ironed out any problems he had in that big time gap between 2021 and now. One major point of contention regarding this show revolves around what some have called the Mexico filter used in the show's visuals. The Mexico filter is often memed on Breaking Bad, where you know a scene is set in Mexico because everything is suddenly bright yellow. It's really jarring and I've got no idea why they do it. People on Twitter have been arguing that the colour schemes and the depiction of families in the promotional materials reinforce stereotypes, portraying them as loud and dirty. It struck a bit of a nerve with them saying it perpetuates these negative stereotypes and fails to provide a nuanced representation of Mexican American culture. Interestingly, this criticism echoes similar concerns raised about shows like Casa Grandes back in the day. Another aspect of Primos that has garnered attention is the use of the Spanish language, particularly in the show's intro. People quickly noticed grammatical inaccuracies in the lyrics. In Spanish, primos refers to multiple cousins, yet the phrase, "oh yeah, primos" was used, translating to "hey cousins." Linguistically, it should have been "oh yeah, primo," singular. The show's creator apologised about this, saying that the reason why it was like this was because the show's protagonist was not a native Spanish speaker. This doesn't explain why all her cousins sang it wrong, but you know, who am I to nitpick? Some critics argued that the show falls victim to the larger issue of non-Latinos portraying Latin American culture. However, it's important to note that the creator, Natasha Klein, is a Mexican-American woman who drew inspiration from her own experiences. And another thing, one of the big things people were kicking off about was the Mexico filter thing being used on top of Mexico. But the show is very clearly set in LA. The Hollywood sign is right there in the opening titles. I'm really confused. Did the critics even watch them? Natasha Klein attempted to address the concerns through a response video, but it didn't go well. Instead of alleviating the backlash, his statement seems to intensify it, drawing further scrutiny towards both herself and the rest of the show's crew. There's a lot of people sweating profusely in Hollywood right now, hoping all this controversy will die down. As we mentioned before, all this controversy is happening before the first episode is even aired. It's based solely on the promotional materials. Is it possible that all this is being blown out of proportion? Shouldn't we reserve judgment until we've actually seen the content and its execution? The discourse has been really intense, especially within the Latin American community. Some argue that the backlash is justified, highlighting the need for accurate and positive representation, but others are confused, wondering why Latin Americans are scrutinizing other Latin Americans, particularly when the show's creator, Natasha Klein, is a Mexican-American woman drawing from her own life experiences. Surely she knows what she's talking about. There are animated shows who have managed to translate Latino culture effectively onto the small screen. Shows like Victor and Valentino and El Tigre have been well received. These series, while not without their flaws, have provided more faithful and nuanced depictions of the Latino experience. The success of these shows might have raised expectations and heightened scrutiny surrounding Primos. The audience, having seen positive portrayals in the past, may have anticipated a similar level of authenticity. Maybe that's why they're disappointed. They've seen it done good before. One user on Twitter said something really interesting. They said, "So I don't want to discredit the criticism of Primos, but I also just want to say that it's really hard to be a non-white person making stories that sing true to you, but will ultimately be under intense scrutiny that I don't see white showrunners go through. Again, I totally understand that it's a multi-million-dollar company and they should be criticized, but the showrunner is Mexican-American. It's based off her life experiences that aren't always grammatically correct or perfect. It just makes me sad to see." I thought that was really interesting. There's another Twitter user that also said something that intrigued me. They expressed their bewilderment, stating, "I've been so confused by this discourse and feel like I'm missing something or there's a dissonance here. Because the way people are slamming this, I assumed it was made by a white person who knew nothing." Both of these really hit the nail on the head, as far as I'm concerned. It does seem like people are blowing stuff out of proportion, but it remains to be seen. Let's see what happens when the show comes out. Now, the pilot episode has been leaked, so I figured we could talk about it briefly, since it's important for us to at least consider what the show is like before trashing it. The pilot episode of Primos centers around the main character's desire to have a memorable 10th birthday party. However, things take an unexpected turn when her 12 cousins move in with her for the summer. Which, alright, that's a bit weird, but fine. Chaos ensues as the protagonist's carefully planned birthday party gets disrupted by her cousins being loud and all over the place. The main character is annoyed at them, before eventually coming to the realization that she was wrong, and that family is the most important thing. Which, if you ask me, is a pretty stupid lesson. Family isn't more important than anything. If a family member is ruining your life, you are well within your rights to cut them out of it. I know I've done it before. It's really strange to say family is more important than anything, because honestly, sometimes it's not. People have rightly criticised this pilot episode for its portrayal of the family as the sole source of the main character's specialness. The resolution of the episode implies that her mean-spiritedness towards her cousins for ruining her party was unjustified, reinforcing the notion that family always comes first, regardless of your feelings or boundaries. This message oversimplifies the complexities of family dynamics. It fails to acknowledge the importance of setting your own boundaries. So the pilot episode seems stupid. This I'm allowed to be angry over because it's actually come out and we can see that it's dumb. I wanted to share that with you because now you at least know what the show is about and can criticize it for that. So yeah, ultimately, this is a really difficult thing for me to address because I can see both sides of it. On the one hand, the Mexico filter is overused and ridiculous. Even if the story isn't set in Mexico, it's still about the culture, so it's weird to use that filter. But on the other hand, The creator is Latin American. She is making a story that she feels represents her childhood well. So who are we to argue with that? I don't know what side to be on here. What do you think of all this? Leave a comment and let me know down below, because I'll be reading them. And if anyone can explain either side of the argument really well to me, then I'll leave it at heart. That way other people can see it and we can all be part of the discussion. Right, subscribe. I'm trying to make it to 3K, so help us out with that. Right, I'll let you go.